So, hi, Paul. Could you please introduce yourself?
I am Paul F. Morris, and I am a nonprofit consultant based in the Portland, Oregon area. The origin story for me is that I could not get hired cleaning swimming pools for a summer. That is how I got into nonprofit fund development. My plan was to go to law school and get into litigation. And I very quickly discovered that in about 3 weeks, I discovered that nonprofit fund development was exactly what I needed to be doing. It was and is and will always be my purpose. And I feel very fortunate to have discovered that very early on. And this is 30 plus years later. I worked both at the local and national level in 28 years of staff work. I now consult full time, and I have clients that I get to work with all across the country, mostly small to early, sort of mid-sized organizations. And the focus is really on helping them build a program from the ground up, so they don't have to just hope that money comes to them, because hope is not a fundraising strategy, or help them add dimensionality to their current development program. Either, this happens through either planning and workflow development, some coaching, or very up close and personal direct work. It's fantastic. The work that I get to do on a day-to-day basis is incredibly meaningful, and to be able to affect change means a lot. And I feel very fortunate.
Awesome. I love that. And so what would you say your favorite piece of work in the nonprofit space is?
Well, from sort of at a high level, it is helping organizations or development staff realize that they can do this, and they don't need to have insert name of super rich philanthropist here to identify and secure the kind of support that propels their mission forward. That is what I get to do every day, and help people develop the skill and confidence that they need to ask for, a special gift, or write a grant that they've never written for, or frankly push back on their board or executive leadership who is insisting that they do something that will be a ridiculous waste of time. And just helping people realize that no matter who they are, where they at, they can say no, and be confident in saying, no, this is what we're going to do instead. Because not everyone's a crank or an acquired taste like I am, but this work is too hard. It's too unrelenting. There's too much risk involved, and people need to realize that they have that power, right? This is not, we don't live in a Dickensian world where we'll just take whatever, thank you so much. Nor have they, signed a blood oath to an organization to do whatever the organization tells them to do.
Interesting. I love that. I was going to say, right. I really find it interesting that you say that the risks are too high, because I would say that sometimes it feels like, I think there is this feeling and this concern of not taking any, like no risks are acceptable risks in the nonprofit space, when really I think there should be room for risk. There should be room also for going, this is a bit of a wild idea, but I think we also, sometimes there is a need to take risks in order to have a payoff as well, and I don't know how that always functions.
Absolutely. And sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. And, I think that what is really hard, I think sometimes what boards and executive directors, especially, I understand their fiduciary responsibility. I get it. But making people track to the penny how they're spending their time, making people beg for new technology, making people beg for help when this is all supposed to be a partnership, right?
Yeah.
That is unconscionable. It is unconscionable that boards and executive directors are often so risk averse that they would rather let someone go rather than take a calculated risk on doing something that could have a significant payoff, right? I mean, if you are trying, if your organization is, the margin is so thin that if something doesn't come through or is delayed, and that means that you're going to close, probably not the time to take a risk in introducing a new program, a new fundraising initiative, whatever, right? Not the time. You've just got to be bringing money in, find one or two ways to do that really well, really consistently, and do that until the time when you have gotten to a place where you can take some risk. Here's a great example. If your organization wants to do special gifts, right, which is what they're also known as major gifts. I like to call them special gifts because I have found that donors are just simply more responsive to that idea. As soon as you say major gift, they're like, well, I'm not Mackenzie Scott. I'm not Bill Gates. I'm not, insert name of super rich philanthropist here. I couldn't possibly do that. But when you call it a special gift, they're like, oh yeah, I love this organization. This organization is incredibly meaningful to me. Yes, I will do something special because it propels the organization forward. It's a semantic change, right? It's a semantic thing.
Semantics
but
is
it's
everything.
Just how it seems to work. So let's say, your organization, good with grants, good with corporate support, good with annual fund. And, that's the time to add a different dimension to your development effort. Maybe it's special gifts. You have the track record of potential donors that you could reach out to and talk with them about making that extra step for a cause that they already love. Recurring gifts is the same way, right?
Yeah.
If you have that track record, now's the time to try to do something different, or go to a grant maker. For God's sake, go to a grant maker and that you've worked with for a while and say, we have a crazy idea. How about you give us $10,000 to support our ability to raise $50,000 more annually?
Yeah.
I have said that to grant makers. I have a crazy idea. But I went to them with the track record, and it was a calculated risk.
Yeah.
So why not? Why not? But yeah, too often. And then that risk aversion, it seeps down. And then everyone is, oh my God, we can't possibly do, they're afraid. Yeah. And donors pick up on that. And when donors pick up on them, they're like, maybe this isn't the organization I thought it was.
Yeah.
And now the risk is going right now. You have exploded your risk because you just weren't willing to invest in more staff, invest in workable technology, invest in a new CRM or a new website, or invest the time to help build the development function in a scalable way.
I think donors sometimes, as someone who is a donor, and I really like to look at a good impact report. I really like to see what's happened, even though I'm not a special gifts donor at this point in my life, but I hope to someday be in that position to be a special gifts donor. And I think there is something to be said for like generational change. Like if someone said to me, hey, this is a bit of a risk, but this is the direction we'd really like to try to take this nonprofit in because we think we can do more by doing X. I don't know. To me, that seems like something I would put my money behind. And maybe it won't pay off, But to me, so I do think that there is a significant change. This is a whole like LinkedIn Live here, FYI, Paul. We're gonna have to make a plan.
That's okay.
We're not even getting into the Hive stuff right now. This is a whole LinkedIn Live.
Well, we can go this direction because you're absolutely right. A strong case comes down to three things. There's a need, there's a plausible plan, and there's some kind of broad societal benefit. There's a need that is important to you, that organization that you're contributing to represents, and they have a plausible plan to reduce that need. They're not solving it to zero because that's not plausible. Solving something to zero is not a plausible path. And we all know it.
Yeah.
But if we agree that there's a need that we need to reduce, if I come to you with a plausible plan and say, Tasha, this is kind of a crazy idea, but I know that you are as committed to making change as we are. Here's the idea we had. If it feels plausible, if it sounds plausible, if I can point out to you a path for you to participate, the likelihood that you are willing to consider it and say yes, exponentially higher.
Yeah.
If I say to you, hey, you know what we're doing, here's a compelling story, give us money, you'll probably do it because you're into what we're doing and we're delivering an impactful message and demonstrating value and impact, but you'll stay at a particular level.
Yeah.
And the philanthropy that you practice it'll feel good, but it won't be like, wow, that really felt great, and I'm going to tell all my friends about it.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. And I think that is also, that's a huge challenge. And in that challenge, that can be very isolating in the nonprofit sector. It's being afraid of taking a calculated risk and saying, this is why we're doing this. And we've done all the work necessary to put us in the best possible position to succeed. That's a huge challenge because boards and EDs often want proof. They want proof of something that is not yet in existence, and they seem unable to extrapolate prior performance to this new potential opportunity. I find that, and it can, because development is hard. This is hard, unrelenting, grinding work.
Yeah, it is.
So you need to have people around you who get it and who can talk about, how do you take a calculated risk? How do you frame it for donors or board members or the broader community, right? Your constituency, so that you can say to them, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and this is the benefit that we believe we will see. Yeah, it's all of that. And then some.
I love that. Well, and I think that's so much of what I'm hoping by putting non-profiteers in conversations one-to-one that they will get out of it is sometimes you just need someone to talk to who's not at your organization, right? Like the politics don't exist. It's an open conversation about, hey, I'm really like finding a challenge here. And for someone to have the opportunity to get even in a call with someone like yourself and just have an open, honest, oh man, this is really, and you have experience across many nonprofits that you've worked with, that you've seen in action, where you've worked yourself to go, actually, there is something like a bit of a precedence I've seen here, you should talk to so-and-so. Like, I think that level of community and sharing and learning from other nonprofiteers is something that can be really, it's so easy to be at your own workplace and just, this is the way we do this. And it's such a stuck, like the mentality is very stuck. And you almost have to consciously go and look for outside influence, right? And be always looking for it. But how do you do that when you're also in the work yourself and you're feeling burnt out and where do you go to find learnings, I guess. And I think that seems to be a challenge.
It's certainly harder now than I think it was pre-pandemic, right? Pre-pandemic, you could go to a networking event or professional development and just be out with people and connect that way. And those are starting to slowly come back, right? Those in-person things.
Yeah.
But that's, it's just, people too often say, well, I don't have time.
Yep.
Okay. Well, believe me, I totally understand about being under-resourced and having carrying the burden of financial performance all yourself. I spent the majority of my career as a sole practitioner in a small shop in small organizations, and it was just me. I didn't have anyone, right?
Yep.
I could rely on my ED, maybe. I could rely on the board, maybe. But day to day, it was my responsibility. That, so I get it. If you can, but you have to carve out, if we as a nonprofit sector, if we are serious about self-care, then the norm must be now that people take time. Maybe it's an hour a week, 20 minutes a day, to find community and connection. That's why so to me, something like the Nonprofit Hive, it's so easy to be able to take that time that if I don't, then I don't get to complain anymore about being isolated and disconnected and where do I go? Because the tool has come to me. And if we're serious, right? A few years ago, prior to the pandemic, there was this whole thing about self-care and avoiding burnout and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then after, during the pandemic and post-pandemic, it all has come back.
Yeah.
If we're serious about it, if we are really serious about it, then we have to stop waiting for executive directors and board members to wake up to the idea of not burning out, because they won't. They will not. Full stop.
Yeah.
So we might as well do it ourselves. Something like the Hive allows us, no matter where we are, to do that. Right here in Portland, it's really easy for me to go to connect with colleagues and networking events. They're happening. If I was in rural Kansas, I'm not going to have that much opportunity.
Absolutely.
So this is why I'm so excited about the Hive and why I'm really interested in seeing where it's going, because the tool is now coming to me and it becomes a norm. I can schedule it. I don't have any excuse. I don't have any excuse not to participate.
No excuse. No, I think it's been really exciting to see. And I think you've hit the nail on the head, is that if you want community, you have to participate in community. You have to find a way to participate. And if the barrier has always been, you couldn't afford to go in person, only your ED or maybe your development director got to go to some big event somewhere. How, frontline employee, nonprofiteer, small town fundraiser, how do you build community? How do you get access to opportunities, to learnings, to true community and connection without a tool or a platform? And I think, right. I appreciate things like that AFP put out, and, there are some great communities out there that are putting out great learnings. The problem is it's mass scale and you're still not meeting people, right? You're learning, which is great, still a critical part. But, how do you find community in those spaces, right? So
philanthropy is not a spectator sport.